What if something growing in your backyard could get you fined, arrested, or investigated by federal agencies? Right? But there are plants, common-looking plants, that the US government has banned because of what they do, what they contain, or what they can spread. And some of them don't look dangerous at all. They look like harmless ornamentals you'd find next to a mailbox. Some of the crops on this list are toxic. Some are invasive. Others are tied to controlled substances. And a few, well, their history is darker than you might expect. So, let me ask you, do you know which garden crop has been linked to one of the deadliest natural toxins on Earth? Like and subscribe before starting this video. Let's start there. Number 1. Castor bean. Castor beans look beautiful at first glance. Large, glossy leaves, red stems, a tropical vibe that makes people think it's just another ornamental. But here's where things turn. Inside its seeds is ricin, a toxin so potent that the CDC classifies it as a Schedule 1 chemical agent. Ricin can shut down protein production in cells. Even a tiny amount, milligrams, is enough to cause organ failure. The famous umbrella assassination in London in 1978 involved ricin extracted from castor seeds. That's how serious this plant is. So why is it restricted or banned in parts of the US? Because intentionally extracting ricin violates federal anti-terrorism laws, and several states have regulations against cultivating castor beans openly due to poisoning risks for pets, wildlife, and children. The plant isn't federally illegal to own, but growing it for seed production or processing is heavily scrutinized. And many state agricultural departments list it as a prohibited noxious weed because it spreads aggressively and poses public health dangers. Some gardeners still try to grow it for its looks, but authorities warn that even handling the seeds barehanded can be risky. Here's the real question. Would you plant something in your yard if one crushed seed could be fatal? What's your opinion on it? And viewers, write their age and location in the comments. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It's the best way to show YouTube you value real, research-backed advice, not just empty tips. Number 2. Giant hogweed. Giant hogweed is one of those plants that looks majestic from far away. Tall white blooms, towering height, a plant that feels almost prehistoric. But the closer you get, the more dangerous it becomes. And this danger is the exact reason the US has strict bans and eradication programs against it. The plant contains furanocoumarins, a compound that reacts with sunlight and burns human skin. Not a mild rash, we're talking blistering, long-term scarring, and sometimes hospitalization. The USDA added it to the federal noxious weed list because of how quickly it spreads and how harmful it is to humans, livestock, and waterways. Many states treat it as illegal to grow, transport, or even possess. Some have active search and destroy programs. If a landowner knowingly keeps it on their property, they can face fines. That's how serious this has become. It arrived in America in the early 1900s as a showpiece ornamental. Nobody realized how its sap could cause severe phototoxic burns, and no one predicted how fast it would invade riverbanks and forests once it escaped cultivation. Here's something to think about. Would you recognize this plant if you walked past it? And if you did, would you dare touch it? Number 3. Kudzu is often called the vine that ate the South, but many people don't realize that this plant was once promoted by the US government itself. During the 1930s Dust Bowl era, soil conservation agencies encouraged farmers to plant kudzu to control erosion. It grew fast, stayed green, and seemed like a miracle crop. Then, the miracle turned into a monster. Kudzu spreads up to a foot per day in warm conditions. It climbs trees, telephone poles, barns, anything standing still. Once established, It smothers native plants by blocking every bit of sunlight. The USDA eventually listed it as a federal noxious weed, and many states now ban planting, selling, or transporting it. The economic damage is real. Electric companies spend millions clearing kudzu from power lines. Forest managers call it one of the most aggressive invaders ever introduced to American soil, and removing it is a battle that can last years. Cutting it won't stop it. Burning it won't stop it. Some roots dive 12 feet deep, making full eradication extremely hard. Here's the part that surprises most people. Kudzu still appears in some online seed catalogs. That's how unaware some gardeners are. So tell me, did you know this plant was once celebrated before it was outlawed? And if you found it creeping across your backyard, would you try to fight it? Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It's the best way to show YouTube you value real, research-backed advice, not just empty tips. Number 4. Opium poppies. Opium poppies look harmless, soft petals, pastel colors, a plant you'd never connect to federal crime. But the truth is sharper than it looks. The moment a poppy pod is scored, it releases latex containing morphine, codeine, and the base compounds used to produce heroin. And because of that, the U.S. government treats this crop with some of the strictest regulations in agriculture. Under the Controlled Substances Act, growing opium poppies with the intent to harvest their latex is illegal nationwide. Even accidental cultivation can raise flags if someone reports it. Most people don't know that the exact species used for ornamental poppies is the same species used in illicit drug production. That overlap is why enforcement exists. The DEA has stated in multiple cases that large-scale or suspicious poppy gardens may be treated as drug manufacturing operations, and several gardeners have learned this the hard way when agents confiscated entire flower beds. The law isn't about the petals, it's about the pods. Once they mature, they become a controlled substance. But here's the twist. Tiny amounts of opium poppy seeds are legal in the food industry, which often confuses gardeners. So let me ask you, should a beautiful flower be banned because of what it can become, or because of what people can do with it? What's your opinion? Number 5. Japanese knotweed. Japanese knotweed doesn't look threatening. It resembles bamboo. It grows in neat clusters. Some people even think it looks decorative. But beneath the soil, this plant behaves like a biological wrecking ball. Its roots, called rhizomes, can push through concrete, crack foundations, and damage roads. That's why the U.S. classifies it as a high-risk invasive species and why many states ban growing, transporting, or even dumping soil that might contain it. The plant was brought to America in the late 1800s as an ornamental and for erosion control. No one expected it to spread aggressively along riverbanks, railways, and residential neighborhoods. Once established, knotweed forms dense thickets that choke out native vegetation and disrupt waterways. Some states treat it as illegal to sell. Others require landowners to remove it if it spreads to neighboring properties. What makes it especially difficult is how little it takes to start a new infestation. A half-inch fragment of root can grow into a full plant. That means mowing it, pulling it, or transporting debris can unintentionally spread it further. Even construction equipment needs to be cleaned to prevent contamination. Here's something many homeowners don't realize. In some regions, properties with knotweed infestations can lose value because banks hesitate to approve loans. So, what do you think? Should a plant that can break foundations be completely outlawed? Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's the best way to show YouTube you value real, research-backed advice, not just empty tips. Number 6. Water hyacinth. Water. Hyacinth is one of the most deceptive plants in America. At a glance, it's peaceful. Floating green leaves, soft lavender flowers, a plant that feels almost calming on the surface of a pond. But beneath that calm is one of the fastest spreading aquatic invaders the US has ever dealt with. That's why many states list it as illegal to own, grow, trade, or transport. The problem starts with how quickly it multiplies. Under the right conditions, water hyacinth can double its population in as little as 2 weeks. It forms thick floating mats that block sunlight, reduce oxygen levels, and suffocate fish and plant life. Entire lakes in the south have been overtaken, turning open water into a solid green mass. The USDA classifies it as a federal noxious weed, and several states, including Texas, Florida, and California, enforce strict bans. In some areas, wildlife officers patrol waterways specifically to spot and remove it. The plant clogs irrigation canals, slows water flow, interferes with hydroelectric systems, and creates breeding grounds for mosquitoes. What surprises people most is that it was once sold widely as a decorative pond plant. That simple decision created decades of ecological damage. So tell me, would you ever trust a plant that can take over a lake in a single season? Number 7. Coca plants. Coca plants are illegal in the United States for one core reason: their leaves contain alkaloids that can be processed into cocaine. Even though indigenous cultures have used coca leaves for thousands of years as a mild stimulant or medicinal chew, U.S. law sees it differently. Under the Controlled Substances Act, coca plants are classified as Schedule II, which makes cultivation, possession, or importation illegal without special federal permission. Most people don't realize how strict the enforcement is. Even a single plant grown for curiosity is treated as a controlled substance violation. The DEA rarely encounters coca in home gardens, but when they do, seizures are immediate. Because the plant itself is considered raw drug material, intent doesn't matter. The plant is an offense. What's interesting is that the coca plant isn't visually dramatic. It looks like a small, ordinary shrub. No thorns, no bright warnings, nothing that screams danger. But its history, cartels, trafficking routes, past U.S. eradication programs, has shaped how the law treats it today. Scientifically, the leaves contain benzoyl methylecgonine, the natural compound that forms the base structure of cocaine. That single fact is why the government draws such a hard line. So, what do you think? Should a plant be banned because of its chemistry, even if most people would never misuse it? Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's the best way to show YouTube you value real, research-backed advice, not just empty tips. Number 8. Purple loosestrife. Purple loosestrife looks harmless, almost charming. Tall spikes of magenta flowers, a plant that could easily end up in a decorative garden bed. But behind that, beauty is a serious ecological threat. That's why many U.S. states classify it as illegal to grow, sell, or transport. The plant spreads through wetlands with incredible speed. A single mature plant can produce up to 2.5 million seeds in one season. Those seeds float, stick to boots, cling to tires, and travel downstream. Once they settle, loosestrife forms dense stands that crowd out cattails and native wetland plants. And when those disappear, so do the insects and birds that rely on them. Entire marsh ecosystems can collapse because of this one species. By the 1990s, the USDA labeled it a noxious weed, and states began enacting bans. Wildlife biologists have documented how loosestrife changes water flow, alters nutrient cycles, and reduces habitat for ducks, geese, amphibians, and pollinators. Controlling it with herbicide is difficult, and pulling it by hand often spreads the seeds even more. It's one of those plants that fools people because of how pretty it looks. But pretty doesn't mean harmless. So here's the question. Should beauty ever excuse destruction? Would you risk planting something that could wipe out an entire wetland? Number 9. Peyote. Cactus. Peyote is small, slow-growing, and easy to overlook. It doesn't have tall spines or dramatic flowers, but inside this little cactus is mescaline, a powerful hallucinogenic compound. And that single chemical is the reason peyote is illegal to grow or possess in the United States, unless you belong to a federally recognized Native American tribe that uses it in traditional religious ceremonies. Under the Controlled Substances Act, peyote is listed as a Schedule I substance, meaning it's banned for almost all uses. Growing it at home, even just as a cactus, is considered illegal cultivation of a controlled plant. Enforcement varies, but federal law is clear. Peyote is protected for Native American church members only, and even they face strict harvesting rules to protect wild populations. What many people don't know is how endangered this cactus is. Peyote grows extremely slowly, sometimes taking 10 to 15 years to reach maturity. Overharvesting and illegal collecting have pushed wild populations into decline. Conservationists warn that if the harvesting isn't managed carefully, peyote could become functionally extinct in some regions. It's a plant surrounded by cultural history, scientific interest, and legal boundaries. So tell me, should a species tied to sacred traditions be banned for everyone else? Or should cultivation be allowed to protect what's left in the wild? Number 10. Giant salvinia. Giant salvinia looks like a harmless floating fern. Tiny leaves, soft textures, something you'd expect to see in a peaceful backyard pond. But in reality, it's one of the most problematic aquatic plants ever introduced to the United States. The USDA has listed it as a federal noxious weed, and it is illegal to grow, possess, transport, or trade in nearly every state. The reason is simple. Giant salvinia doubles in size with astonishing speed. Under warm conditions, it can cover an entire lake in a matter of months. The floating mats can grow over a foot thick, blocking sunlight and suffocating fish and aquatic plants. Lakes turn stagnant. Oxygen levels crash. Boating becomes impossible. Water treatment systems clog, and entire ecosystems collapse under the weight of this plant. It entered the U.S. through the aquarium trade in the 1990s. Once released, sometimes by accident, sometimes intentionally, it spread rapidly across southern states like Texas and Louisiana. Wildlife managers still battle it daily, using boom barriers, mechanical harvesters, and biological controls. But the plant is stubborn. Even a tiny fragment can form a new colony. Here's the question. Should a plant that can shut down a lake be treated like contraband? And if you saw it in a pond near your home, would you report it? Conclusion. Now that we've gone through all 10 crops, let me ask you something simple but important. How many of these plants did you already know were illegal? Most gardeners never imagine that something growing quietly in a pot or a pond could break federal law, damage entire ecosystems, or put public health at risk. Yet here we are, real plants, real consequences, real regulations built from decades of science and environmental impact. Some crops on this list are banned because they're toxic, others because they destroy landscapes, and some because their chemistry links them to controlled substances. Different reasons, same outcome. The U.S. sees them as a threat worth stopping. If you want to keep your garden safe, legal, and responsible, always check your state's invasive species list and federal guidelines before planting something unfamiliar. We've added strong reference links in the description so you can explore the research yourself. This video was created after long research. We can't include every study or every regulation, so we've added strong reference links in the description if you want to dig deeper into federal and state documentation. Before you go, tell me in the comments, which plant shocked you the most and why? And if you haven't yet, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay with us for more hard-to-find truths about American agriculture. Your curiosity keeps this channel alive,